everyone. Welcome to another episode of No Title Needed, coming to you from the beautiful Feinstein's Cabaret here at the Hotel Carmichael in Carmel, Indiana, USA. I am Cynthia Collins.
And I am Scott Osborne.
We are your co-hosts.
And as every week.
Oh, my God, we love it. And this week, our guest, Mr. Fred Glass. Fred, thank you for being here.
That's my honor. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my gosh, of course. You've done many things. In your life. We're going to get to all that in the short time we have. We're going to try.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I know. Well, you can't do a whole lifetime in 20 minutes, but you're with Gleaners now. Okay. Now are you the head honcho there?
I am. Yeah. CEO.
Oh my gosh. And it's Gleaners Food Bank, correct?
Gleaners Food Bank of Indiana. There's some other Gleaners around the country that are unaffiliated, but we're Gleaners Food Bank of Indiana.
And tell us, go. You know, you're the big guy.
When did that start?
What does it see? When did it start? And what is the primary of Gleaners?
Right. So I think people kind of have a vague sense of Gleaners. They fight hunger, and that's what we do. But essentially, we're a food wholesaler for the 300 food pantries that serve people directly in the 21 counties in central Indiana. So we provide low-cost and no-cost food to food pantries so they can in turn provide that to our neighbors in need. And then we run one pantry out of Gleaners on the southwest side of Indianapolis. It's the largest food bank in the state of, or largest food pantry in the state of Indiana. And then we do some other various and sundry things, but that's our core mission.
Yeah. How did you get involved with that?
Well, after I left IU, I went back to practicing law, and I thought I'd just do that and fade into the sunset.
Oh my God, you're an attorney too.
I am, and so I thought, I'd do that, and that'd be fine, and that's what I would do. But I was looking for like a side volunteer thing compatible with the full-time practice. And I was looking around, and things lead to things, and somebody said, "Would you leave the practice completely to go full-time?" And I'm like, for the right thing, I would. And there were some things that came up that an earlier version of me would think they were cool, but at this point they were kind of too corporate for me. And then when Gleaners came up, it's like, serve the hungry every day. Yeah, sign me up for that. So I pursued the CEO role, got that a little over 3 years ago, and I've been the CEO since then. Gave up my law practice.
Right. Okay.
So.
Oh God, I'm waiting.
All right. Yeah. Now to jump to another side of this incredible story that is your life. You were also the athletic director at IU, and tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, it's nice of you to say that. It's really, I've had trouble holding a job, so I've done all these different things because I haven't been afraid to try something I know nothing about, and that's another example of it. I was minding my own business, practicing law at Baker & Daniels. It's Fagery Drinker now, and the chairman of the search committee reached out to me and said, "Would you think about putting your name into the athletic director at IU?" And I was like, "No, I don't know anything about it. I hadn't been in intercollegiate athletics, I hadn't been in administration. I hadn't been a D1 athlete." And I like to say I hadn't been a D1 athlete, like it suggests maybe I was some other kind of athlete. I wasn't. So I was no kind of athlete. And it was quite interesting. The chairman of that committee was Bill Steffen, who had been Steve Goldsmith's chief of staff, a law school classmate of mine. He was a fairly prominent Republican. I was involved in Democratic politics. We had some back and forth when I chaired Bart Peterson's transition camp committee, and we could have messed with each other, but we didn't. And I always tell young people, hey man, it's a round world, And if I'd been a jerk to him, he probably would have thought he didn't have the temperament to be athletic director, but I didn't. And we worked through things. And so years later, here's this guy in the other political party saying, hey man, why don't you sign up for this? And eventually I was like, sounds kind of cool. I think I could do it. I got over the hump of saying yes to something I had absolutely no idea what it was about. And I think that actually ended up being a benefit to me while I was athletic director.
How many? 11 years? How?
Yeah, almost 12.
Almost 12 years?
In dog years, that's like 40. It can kind of wear on.
A long time when you're a puppy. So what was your, you're like, I know nothing, I'm not even an athlete. Did you even have to Obviously, you didn't have to be one. Obviously, you never had to play a sport in your life. You just had to know how to run something, very, very good at running a department.
Yeah, I think, at one point I was talking to my kids about follow your passion and this and that. And my wife said, what do you think your passion is? I said, probably government politics. That'd been what I really cut my teeth on and what I really liked. And she goes, no, your passion is leadership. And I think that's really true. The little red thread that's run through the different things I've done is they've been mission driven and they've involved leadership. And so, IU athletics, it's heart, it's mission driven. And I got to lead at a time when IU athletics was sort of at its nadir. It had been the Kelvin Sampson major infractions case. My predecessor lost his job over it. And so I went into a situation that was in bad straits, which is probably why they hired me. They'd have to be desperate to turn to a guy that doesn't know anything about intercollegiate athletics. But I was, a lawyer, an alumnus.
Yeah.
I'd been somewhat involved in IU. I was on the Dean's Advisory Council for the College of Arts and Sciences. I had ostensible sports connections because I'd been president of CIB and negotiated the Colts deal and negotiated NCAA coming here, which looked like it kind of was compatible, really wasn't, but I think gave me the credentials to not be the craziest person they ever chose for that job.
Yeah. Go.
Can I hear a fond memory from the time as AD?
There were a lot. I don't want to take up this whole segment, but
No, go.
the most impactful thing that I was involved in involved the IU-10. And in 1968, the black football players boycotted the IU football team out of a perception that they were being treated badly and unfairly and inequitably. And they walked away from the team. And that was a big deal. And you guys are too young to remember this, but, we had just won the Rose Bowl. We had a bunch of young players. And for years and years and years, IU got the reputation as a place where young black football players didn't want to come. And out of the blue, I got this letter from this woman saying, I represent the IU-10. And if you don't, apologize publicly and do all this stuff within 10 days, we're going to blow this up publicly. And I could have been put off by the challenge of that because none of us had anything to do with that. And it was very, kind of coarse. But we didn't do that. We worked with the president's office to reach out to them, and we invited them all on campus. We paid for their trip. We had dinner in the union, and we spent 3 days of healing, talking about what happened, talking about their experience, connecting in a way that was, I'm getting chills thinking about it, was incredible. And we came out of that apologies weren't issued. We didn't do that, but healing issued. Mm. And I had all these letters from these guys. Like I arrived in Indianapolis bitter, and I flew out with all of that being gone.
What year was this when all that happened?
Oh, shoot. It was, I left in 2020. So this is probably 2015.
God.
We invited them back to campus. We gave them their Rose Bowl rings. We gave them their Letterman's jackets. We introduced them at halftime. We put a educational piece to that in the IU Athletics Hall of Fame. We started a course at IU and the College of Arts and Sciences about, de-escalating conflict, because that's essentially what it was about. So I am more proud and impacted by bringing the IU-10 back into the fold than really anything else. I mean, we won a national championship in men's soccer. I went to the White House, a lot of very cool things, but that one was the most impactful.
It means nothing when the team is not
a team
and unified, and everyone feels important on that team.
And the players,
it
wasn't about the players. The white players who remained still considered them their brothers and teammates.
Yeah.
It got played out in what was going on in society. And
sure,
big
60
guys got caught up in something beyond them. Even today, like the other day, I ran into one of these guys' brothers, like at Starbucks, and they're like, "You don't know what you did for my brother."
Oh,
excellent. And that's the stuff that makes me
of course
glad I did what I did.
We have to take a break.
Absolutely.
Quick break.
I knew I'd run through the segment. Sorry.
No, we don't. We hate stopping guests when they're on a roll. Okay,
but we'll pick up with that roll.
We're gonna pick up with that Kaiser roll in a minute. Okay, we're gonna take a quick break and hear from our sponsor, Randy Sorrell. Hey everyone, we're lucky enough to have artist Randy Sorrell as our sponsor. And today, he's going to show you a few of his beautiful pieces.
Check this out.
Say hello to Songbook Standards. This is an original acrylic, part of my music series that I completed in 2024. Sort of celebrating jazz and blues and cool clubs all across the nation, or the world. And if you dig music, man, you are going to love this one. Lavender Fields is part of my landscape series, and if you could see this in person, you would recognize how thick and juicy and packed full of color this painting is, and it really captures the lavender fields that you see in France and, sometimes here in Indiana. I think you're going to love this one.
That's good. See, you're good. Hey everyone, welcome back to No Title Needed with our guest, Fred Glass. He is the CEO of Gleaners Food Pantry. You do what you do is you provide the food for the food pantries. But however, you do have a food pantry in Gleaners itself.
Excellent summation.
Nice.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
And good choice of word.
Oh my gosh, summation. Yes, that's what it's all about here. Summarizing. No, listen. So here's what I find so interesting about your past is that your dad had a bar. Okay, my gosh, your father had a bar and he was feeding everyone. I know that's not, but tell that story because that's always like interesting to me.
Yeah.
Your dad was like feeding people who came in and had nothing, right? I mean,
Yeah. So Dad, when I was about 5 years old, bought what became George's Liberty Bar at the corner of East and Washington Street in downtown Indianapolis, which was certainly, and to a certain extent, is on Skid Row in Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
And I was an only child, so that was the family business. So I literally and figuratively grew up in that bar, and I hated it because my pals were doing all this normal stuff, and while I was in the back room of this downtown bar. But it's the best thing ever happened to me because I got to meet people that a lot of us dismiss as like street people, winos. I mean, I sat with them and knew them as people and saw things that young kids don't see, like, cops coming in and shaking down my dad, hassling patrons until my dad would give him a fifth of bourbon to leave. So I gained a healthy challenge of authority maybe as a young person, and empathy for these people that most people didn't think twice about. And we had all of our family meals at the tavern. So you're talking about feeding people. We had Thanksgiving, Easter, Christmas at the tavern, because the loneliest day on Skid Row is Sunday when the bars were closed. And the loneliest days of that are holidays. And so my dad never said a thing about it. That's just what we did. He put a steam table in the tavern and made a little like card for people. And when they were drunk, he'd have them buy, the card, so that when they were sober, they were stuck with this card that had them eat this nutritious food that Dad
served
on the steam table. And so that was very impactful to me. And Dad didn't preach, and he was a flawed person. He was a bad alcoholic, and I have issues about that as well. But he lived the gospel for me to see, and it was a great gift. And so he would be proud that we've come full circle. And the kid that saw him feeding the hungry at the tavern, I'm feeding the hungry now as the CEO of Gleaners.
So wow. This is did you write a book about, is it about this?
I did, yeah. I did. My daughter gave me this thing for Father's Day a few years ago called Storyworth.
Okay.
some of your listeners, viewers may have seen it, where it's a subscription, and every week they ask you a question, and then you write the answer, and then whoever gave it to you can respond back and whatever. And so I did that. And about halfway through, my daughter said, "Dad, I don't know this was a bigger gift to you or me." And when I finished, I felt like, I've got enough stories that I want to write a book. And my mom said, as moms do, "Honey, you ought to write a book," And so I did. And we could talk about that or not talk about that, but it's called Making Your Own Luck: From a Skid Row Bar to Rebuilding Athletics. And I talk a lot about the tavern, my dad's alcoholism, the panic attacks that it raised with me when I didn't even know, what they were, the empathy that created, which I think has been something that's really served me well through my career.
How long was that bar there? Did your dad have it?
Yeah,
Did he have that bar?
Yeah, so Dad had it from the time I was about 5 till I was about, 12 or 13. Then he bought George's Uptown Tavern at 42nd College, and he had that through most of my teenage years. And that was a whole different.
Wait. Now, did he still do the same thing though? When people came in, would he feed
It
them?
was a different kind of clientele there, but he still had the food. But my day was I'd get up with my dad, and we'd drive to the bar, and I'd sweep it out and mop it out, and then I'd hitchhike to Brebeuf. I went to Brebeuf. Hitchhike from 42nd.
Oh my gosh, that's a long
86.
super fun.
An early morning.
In the West.
And it's in street way.
Yeah, and the statute of limitations is probably right on this. So I was fairly entrepreneurial. So sometimes a couple pints of Dark Eyes cherry vodka would find its way into my gym bag, and I'd sell those at school to make a little scratch aside. So I was a little bit of a rascal when I was younger, but I think that's okay.
We've all got stories.
Yeah, right.
So wait, oh my
You
gosh.
just don't tell them one.
Right.
But this is all
The world to see.
these characters coming into that first bar. Would they just walk in and be like, "I need a drink. I have no money." You know what I mean? They didn't have anything, but they wanted a drink. Not just, sometimes maybe they didn't want food.
But
Did he do that? You know what I mean?
they were people. So there's Tiger. Tiger ran the Salvation Army right next door. And years later, I recognized that he was like flamboyantly gay.
Yeah.
He'd wear these animal prints, and his name was Tiger, and he'd wear crazy.
God, I love it.
And I would sit there with him and talk to him. And he said to me one day, I'll never forget, he said, "Fred, this is our living room, and the jukebox is our stereo. This is where we live, and your dad makes that possible for us. I used to get to sweep out the bar, and Dad let me keep change I would find. And a couple times I found a lot of change. I'm like, God dang, those guys must have been drunk last night. Well, looking back, I realized they were throwing some down for Freddie, because I became sort of the mascot, right? I was a little kid that a lot of them, hadn't seen their kids or whatever. They'd ask Dad, "Hey, could I sweep out the place to make a little bit so I could, buy a couple drinks?" So they all had their own stories. They weren't monolithic. And it gave me a feel early on that, these were people, each with their own stories. I talk about at Gleaners statistics, over 1 million Hoosiers are food insecure, a Rubicon that we crossed. 1 in 7 Americans are food insecure. 1 in 5 children are food insecure. And that's numbing. But they each have their own story, and they're all very different. And I think that's important for us to keep in mind.
One thing I always think about, it's just me. I always think, food is so wasted. So much food is wasted.
Right.
So, and I'm thinking, this country has enough food to feed everyone. Everyone. And you think about these kids that go to school hungry, and they're eating in school, but there is. What do you think? I mean,
Well, that's the dirty little secret that I didn't really understand. I mean, food's wasted because you see your kid not eat everything, or the cafeteria, whatever. But the system wastes food by the train car full.
Right.
It's endemic that they throw away millions of pounds of food every day. So this might sound weird from a food banker, but food insecurity is not about food. There's plenty of food.
Right.
Food insecurity is about income not meeting expenses.
Right.
Really, it's about poverty. So I don't consider myself to be in the charitable food business. I consider myself to be in the poverty alleviation business armed with food. I use food to help feed people in the here and now, but also as a vehicle for them to help pull themselves out of poverty. Like a lot of things, there's plenty of good education, there's plenty of good health care, there's plenty of good food,
If you can get it.
but where you are in terms of poverty drives whether you can have it. So the people I serve, about a third of them can't work. They're old, they're children, or they're disabled. And we have to acknowledge that, and they're not get pulled up by their bootstraps so they ain't got no boots.
Right.
Okay. Of the balance, almost all of them are working. This canard that people are sitting back waiting for the largesse of government to take care of themselves is just that. It's ridiculous. I work in the pantry, and I love to do that. And when I'm putting food in people's trunk, I'm pushing aside work boots. I'm pushing aside a tool belt. I'm pushing aside a hard hat. They are working. They can't make it. I think it can be hard for people to understand that, like us, that, things are good. I see for sale sign. I see work help wanted signs. Why aren't these people working? Well, they are. They just can't make it. And that's where we step in so that hopefully during those times, usually are chronic. They're in and out, divorce, illness, whatever pushes them into at least a temporary need to access the charitable food system.
They are working. It's just hard to catch up. It's very hard to catch up. And then you have the ones that you say cannot work. They
think of this. So some really smarty pants people at the Brookings Institute said a living wage is $18 an hour and employer provided health insurance. Okay, $18 an hour is no princely sum. That's about $35,000 a year. But that's what they declare. If you're doing that, family of four, you're doing okay. Let's accept that for a minute. In Indiana, 38% of people make less than that. And now they say it's $21 an hour. In Indiana, 48% people make less than that. So I think the living wage is pretty, kind of a low ball. But almost half the people who are working in Indiana are making less than that. Starts to show why there's so many people that end up needing to turn to us.
Right. We have to wrap it up. I'm so sorry.
Gosh.
Yeah.
We're over our time. We're going
Thoughts are still rolling.
Time trouble. I know. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having
here. And thanks for doing this and what you do with Gleaners and what you have done in the past. But now that you're doing this, and that you love it and that you're spreading good.
It's a blessing. I love it.
Yeah.
And
Truly, thanks for all you're doing.
And thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And thank you for joining us once again for No Title Needed here at Feinstein's. Come on over, see a cabaret.
Yep.
Tons of variety. Something going on every night.
Always a good show.
Oh my gosh, you're going to love it. And do yourself a favor, come see a show. I'm Cynthia Collins.
And I'm Scott Osborne.
And we're your co-hosts.
Always.
And forever. Thanks. We'll see you next time.